At 24,000 feet, something went terribly wrong. A cockpit window suddenly exploded, and in less than 3 seconds, the captain was half outside the aircraft. His body was being sucked into the sky while the co-pilot was holding him by his legs, screaming for help. But here's the terrifying part. The plane was still flying, and what happened next will shock you.
Inside the plane. In the cockpit, 3 frightened flight attendants are clinging to his legs. If he slips from their grasp, the captain's body could be sucked into the engine and bring down the plane. At the controls, a young co-pilot is battling to get the plane to the nearest airport. The lives of 87 passengers and crew hang by a thread.
This is not a movie. This is a real aviation emergency that happened mid-air. A routine flight turned into a survival battle at 24,000 feet. Today, you all will see how the window failed, why the pilot got sucked out, how the aircraft didn't crash immediately, and how they managed to land it safely. The flight was a short-haul commercial trip. Calm weather, normal passengers, nothing unusual. The captain was experienced, over 10,000 flight hours. The co-pilot was younger but well-trained. Everything looked normal until climb altitude. At around 24,000 feet, a loud bang echoed through the cockpit. The windshield cracked violently. Then, in seconds, it blew outward. Instant decompression, oxygen mask dropped, paper flew everywhere, and then the captain was violently pulled toward the opening. Pressure difference at that altitude is deadly. It creates a force strong enough to pull a human body through a broken window. The captain's upper body was outside the aircraft. Only his legs remained inside. The co-pilot grabbed him immediately with all his strength. He held on for minutes. He refused to let go. At lower altitude, emergency crew managed to stabilize the cockpit. The captain was slowly.
Is nu niet wat surf, dat is het, is niet een beetje gas nog goed, nou.
There is it. Yeah, no, when you have no in Iceland, it's here, some ability we can the hawks at us no.
Is not this no skip nog wel presaat welke we willen.
Well, then you saw push it up. Muff.
Ja, zie je dat? Niet naar het ook hier, er is een beetje meer zelfgerust. Nu is nog er wat, nu is het af.
Je besprokt niet. De boy response je aan. Je ziet de helps en uitlingen, de helps en je lief. Zit in de power en de captain zei het hier dus. Zoek het. En veel in de pakken zat je op zo'n mooi van acht mooi van de is in je zie dan opstellen. Dan mag je dus en zat je zo veel op zit ben maar in de lange weg zo ongeveer wat je hier op zo'n hele film.
The hawks in at us no.
Kijk, wie Hilda. Nationale Opera for House in his back.
The Lord be night as Elia finishes our sharps is now often in the box at the Zora. Lord mustn't serve for a man no shit.
A sharp bit of effort, not a nozzle we fizz, but the nas it's our seats of what. Must we have seen a beano?
Yeah, well, there's no implications. So we must let us to whatever fun now as the Zora.
Well, then it's half my shit. It's Matthias was so slams, sorry, I run on more for good, not off in it now. You know, there is now years now, the dips.
Here, there is now near south of the she's in the feather.
Das Mathas stalwart and earthy. So had I can go off and if I've stayed in Rena. This pack of the word and it was I will smash and spam with all.
Sure, baby, will set met Ellens with a note on a kind of reserve. Asked when the Nippiness madness thing is on unique. Ma Snooky or by things must nail. No party rare. Nicky in this finesse at Sernet else asked that him only soon under it or by Snooky.
Half night they get taste and off for the nurse for fancy her and the vina. Rains in the smash fast. All for tonight in a manner of sea settled by your night and I let small whistle.
Help me, here's your pedal. Help me, wait a minute now. Where is now near yourself?
My husband getting out best thing. There's no going on yourself, so keep.
Ja, surf for the floor, if you have to the silver, the histle busy. Now, with the gas not with us in him fest. Slow when the sea said it's a concern with us. Her feet and I were thinking the fish snack. Here on them, some let's just sneer, but he's here, was he? Well, hasn't he smashed the fly though? If and Zlath and fellows know it, they just can't answer her still.
So we are not now just the Nessie so we can have you know with the silver without so you better not put all that out. And there's no well aware of looking you with the one that you with the snake deal of the mad you with the area so not very and there's a which is that it all in the steel.
Schach mit was kann jetzt missen sie, los ist Salat. This hell of it missing it said but the nearest of this on both the murmur this is no wind. This pack of the opposite fell of the weirdest boat. And just it would fit to a man up see fine. It's a in the mouse.
Det här är en omständighet för those nets all now necessary to right so yeah det vill det också så det ska vi mycket
Let's nicht achterher. Ja, wo är det? Ja, ni var så skönt.
Nej, så kan jag ju så är Austin was not here which in the mouse and then it's in fact with the cab the west if he was yes and the lock lost not going to give him scales and miss here few yes and he's just in the mouse if lesson toughness yes and this is this and the mouse upstairs
Air traffic control instructed immediate emergency descent. The plane dropped rapidly to safer altitude. As altitude decreased, pressure stabilized slightly, but the captain was still trapped outside for over 10 minutes. The co-pilot did not release his grip.
At 8:55 a.m., flight BA 5390 makes a perfect landing at Southampton Airport. Immediately, emergency vehicles surround the plane. Firefighters remove the body of the captain and lead the passengers and crew away.
I remember seeing the co-pilot, the man who really, if it wasn't for him, would have been
on the other side by now, and is walking down the runway very slowly, shaking his head, and he got an ambulanceman walking with him with his arm round the shoulders of the co-pilot. And the co-pilot was shaking his head as if... I remember that distinctly. I don't know why, but I do.
Alistair Acheson has carried out a remarkable piece of flying, almost unprecedented in aviation history. He has had to pilot his plane without his captain, who has undergone physical stresses that nobody could have been expected to survive.
I think these extreme conditions, no one expects to occur in their lifetime. His survival time must have been measured in no more than tens of minutes as he became colder and colder and his body systems began to shut down.
Tim Lancaster's body was subjected to a two-pronged assault. The physical violence that his body suffered being blown out of the plane, and the extreme cold and lack of oxygen at 17,000 feet. Every 1,000 feet of altitude causes the temperature to drop by 2 degrees centigrade. So the temperature on the outside of the plane would have been around minus 17 degrees centigrade. The extreme wind chill also meant his body was losing heat very rapidly.
He would have lapsed into semi-consciousness and then unconsciousness, and as the temperature, his core body temperature fell, he would have finally died as a result of the excessive cold in that environment.
Despite the trauma that Captain Lancaster's body suffered, there was one final twist to his story.
It's only once I've ever been here, and that was 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
In the Oxfordshire countryside, John Heward and Nigel Ogden are visiting one of their crew members who shared their horrific experiences.
Here he is.
Hi, guys. John, how are you? Nice to see you.
Nice to see you, mate.
Nige, come in, come in. Hi.
Like on SCP, when you go in, you've got to pretend...
The captain of that fateful flight, Tim Lancaster, somehow survived his horrific ordeal. There were no fatalities on BA 5390.
That's it now, you can go on a 3-day cruise across there.
As his frozen, lifeless body was removed from the plane, nobody thought that Tim could have survived such punishment. But remarkably, he was slowly beginning to emerge from his horrific adventure.
Tim, can you hear me?
I regained some consciousness on the ground at Southampton because I remember big red and white things, which were obviously fire engines and ambulances, not people and not conversation. And then my next clear, lucid thoughts are in hospital in Southampton. Over the next few days, all the bits eventually arrived back in my sort of consciousness, and I put the jigsaw together and, you know, sort of played the whole story for myself and understood what had happened. There was a big bang, a noise of all the air escaping, but I remember watching the windscreen move away from the aircraft, and then it had gone like a bullet. It disappeared into the distance. And I think there was an even bigger bang, or there was an even bigger bang. And I was very conscious of going upwards. And, well, the whole thing became completely surreal then, as it would. And I was aware of being outside of the airplane, but that really didn't bother me a great deal. What I remember most clearly is the fact I couldn't breathe because I was facing into the airflow. And I turned round and actually turned my body round. I was sort of looking back along the top of the aircraft at that stage, and I could breathe then. And yes, I remember that. I can remember seeing the tail of the aircraft. I can remember the engines going round, and then I don't remember much more. Memory stopped.
Aviation is one of the safest industry in the world, but when it fails in seconds. If the co-pilot had let go, this story would have ended differently. Would you still fly after hearing this?